Arlington Initiative to Reduce Emissions.
Those coal-fired power plants that are causing the air pollution that drifts over us.
I don't think we can wait to find out what the impacts are.
Federal government needs to act soon.
The alarms that are being set off, that's where the skepticism comes in.
You really do have to follow the money.
That's probably 80% of your air leakage in this unit.
People will see tangible results.
There are energy savings in the business community.
Why wouldn't you do all you can to address the problem? My sons are 9 and almost 6, and it's not the first thing on their mind, but that's part of why we do this.
It was 2-1, the Nationals were winning, and then the guy that I got the bat from.
We want to make sure that things are at least as good for the next generation as they are for us. So when I'm looking at them, I'm thinking, are things going to be so hot in the summer that people aren't going to want to go out? Are their mosquitoes going to be so bad that they're not going to want to go out? Is the air going to be so bad that they're not going to want to breathe it? If it gets too warm, eventually, and I hope that this doesn't happen in our lifetimes or their lifetimes, we're facing some potential dangers.
In a lot of places in the world, we're already seeing stressed ecosystems as a result of the climate change that's happened so far.
The issue of global warming has potential catastrophic effects.
Your average home in this country uses 1.5 to 2 times more energy than it actually needs to heat it and cool it.
If we could save 20%, that'd be awesome.
That'd be awesome, yeah. All that hot air just sitting around there, we really want as much insulation here as possible.
Clean air, clean water, and doing what we can for the environment has always been something I've believed in. But global warming is something that I just started to become educated on over the last couple of years, reading about it, articles in the newspaper, and of course there was Al Gore's movie Inconvenient Truth.
Pollution that's being affected by global warming, but we are still, by all odds, the largest contributor. They've all occurred in the last 14 years.
So as more and more people read about it, more and more people realize that there are some terrible consequences to global warming, such as rising ocean waters, decreasing land mass, threat of extinction of species, and more disease. There was one person that thought my speech was too much doom and gloom.
That if we don't reverse this harmful effect, it could mean the end of civilization as we know it.
Oftentimes, it's what makes us act if we're a little bit worried about the consequences.
And by the time we find out that we've ordered a climate for our planet that we don't want, it's too late to change it. There's a lot of inertia.
All of these things can affect Arlington, even though we're not considered a coastal community. But it certainly affects us as a world, and I thought Arlington should do its part.
We are calling our climate initiative Fresh Air, Arlington Initiative to Reduce Emissions.
We need partners in audits and inspections who can help strengthen the greenhouse program.
We're also reaching out to the business community. We have a strong partnership with
gardens. Who knows, but here to tell us whether that will be so is Joan Kelch, environmental planner with Arlington County. Joan Kelch, thank you for joining us.
Lead by example. We are going to reduce our energy consumption by 2% a year. We are going to purchase more wind power.
Benefits of a green roof. One is it absorbs storm water, so there's
Yeah, you've got all sorts of problems up here.
And we have made, once again, a commitment to reduce overall emissions by 10% by the year 2012.
About global warming. I think every reputable skeptic will admit that there has been some warming of the planet. You know, the alarms that are being set off, I guess that's where the skepticism comes in.
We have gotten very little negative feedback. There are some people that are still skeptical about the risks of climate change and whether it's actually coming or not.
Dr. Patrick Michaels, climatologist at UVA, you know, Professor Lindzen at MIT, are these guys just whistling Dixie, or are they, is there real skepticism?
Really, in the scientific community, the skepticism has dwindled down to a very, very small number of people. So there's not much of it left in the scientific community.
I've got to add also, you've got to look at where the funding's coming from. The climatologist that you referred to at the University of Virginia is funded by the oil and gas and the coal industry. So well, it's not always the case that but sometimes it's like the
and the funding that the scientists who are preaching global warming comes from where?
We had plenty of good work to do that was worthy of funding from places like the National Science Foundation before global warming came along. So we didn't need to gin this up to keep employed. So contrary to what you may have heard, it's not a full employment act for climate scientists.
You know, you really do have to follow the money.
If you see the strong possibility of parts of the Earth becoming less habitable, why wouldn't you do all you can to address the problem, especially if some of the solutions would be money savers? Why not? And that's what Arlingtonians are saying right now.
Thank you, all of the leaders of the Civic Federation. When we talk about this energy savings initiative,
the real work gets done by the Arlington County staff, and most of the public realizes that, but if they don't interact with them on a regular basis, they might not. Not only do we have top talent in the energy area in John Worrell and the environmental policy area in Joan Kelch, but everyone in the Arlington County staff is excited about this initiative.
I mean, we've been very specific, and with businesses, it's very vague.
People from all departments are saying, what can we do to be a part of this? There's lots of departments that you wouldn't think of ordinarily that are playing a part in this.
Air pollution doesn't stop at the Arlington County boundary. Well, ever since I was a little child, I was very interested in environmental issues, and this particular job is dealing with very real issues in a community. I feel like the rubber meets the road where my job is. I can really go out and talk to developers before they build a building to make that building a little bit more energy efficient, a little more environmentally responsible.
I'm Kojo Nandi. Hi, David, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Hey, Kojo. Love the show. I'm your frequent listener and contributor, and I have a question about taxes.
I don't think we can wait to find out what the impacts are. I think we know that there is a potential risk, and we can do the things now to reduce that risk. For homeowners, the federal government has an energy rebate for certain home improvements, and some of it we just have to do on our own. We can live our lives in very comfortable air-conditioned homes. We can continue to go shop in grocery stores and do all the things that we normally do, but do it in a way that uses less energy and reduces our carbon footprint.
The greenhouse gases are primarily carbon dioxide and then also methane and freons. As I was growing up, I became environmentally aware, you're seeing pollution and thinking, well, this is kind of dumb. Why is there stuff on the ground, stuff in the air? There must be a way to solve this problem. It was just seen as just from a personal standpoint, it was kind of a moral problem and also an intellectual challenge. My first task was to really identify where we're using energy and how much is it costing us. And in many cases, we've identified areas where we can reduce energy use and energy costs. Now, one of the virtues of reducing energy use is that you also reduce the environmental burden from energy use.
We have set a target of a 10% greenhouse gas emissions reduction by the year 2012 for all county operations.
And we set the targets so that they were reachable, but I have a feeling when we get to the year 2012, we will have gone far beyond the 10% that we set to do.
If we can show that county facilities can make that reduction, meet that goal by 2012, that will be a wonderful model for others to follow.
The first step is understanding the problem and then putting a preliminary plan in place, which is what this is.
This effort is known as Fresh Air, Arlington Initiative to Reduce Emissions. Learn more by checking out
Fresh Air is a broad program that integrates all of these separate environmental programs and shows how they're all helping with the climate change issue.
Let's make fresh air.
The Arlington County Board is very enthusiastic about this air initiative.
It is really wonderful to live in an area where people value the environment.
It's a 5-year initiative. They're fully committed to it. We now have an ongoing funding source that will make this initiative sustainable from the consumer utility tax. And this money will all be going towards demonstration solar projects and much more energy efficiency throughout the county. But more importantly, education to businesses and residents.
Warmer than outlying suburban or rural areas, which causes us to use more air conditioning. Which again,
the third thing that you can do is replace one frequently used light bulb with a compact fluorescent bulb.
How can somebody changing a light bulb in Arlington, how can they have any effect?
Well, first of all, they can save money on their energy bill by doing so. They can cut their lighting costs by 2/3. So it's the smart thing to do from a fiscal perspective. They can also tell a few friends about it, and so on and so on and so on. And the more people that reduce their energy use, the less emissions that we have. And that's what needs to happen.
Have you ever considered switching to compact fluorescents?
We've started switching.
Now the compact fluorescent bulbs you'll be replacing these with will use about 20% as much energy and last 7 to 10 times as long.
Oh, okay.
So
if we had 100,000 Arlingtonians change 1 or 2 light bulbs, that really reduces emissions considerably.
The second thing you can do is to get an energy audit. We're going to pay for 20 of you to do this. If you want to apply on our website.
An energy audit is focused on providing answers on what can be done to make the house either more comfortable and or more energy efficient.
The capacity is
a type of fiberglass.
What do you want to get out of this audit? This is a big, big leak.
Next best thing is ceiling.
People are more likely to call us up and say, my family room is cold. My master bedroom is miserable. Can you come out and tell me what's wrong with it?
And in the back bedrooms, we get ice on the inside of the windows.
The blower door is basically just a big fan that draws the air through the house so that we can better identify where the leaks are.
Nicole, now what we're going to do is with this fan running, we're going to walk around your house and see if we can locate some of those leaks we know are there. Now, if you just feel the canvas here on the doorway a little bit, you can feel there's a pretty big pressure there. That's the pressure this fan's exerting all over your house.
By helping people live in more energy efficient housing, that also helps make it more affordable. The decisions the county is making on its own facilities and its own investments are really being driven by the numbers.
Most of the investment is in energy efficiency, and that has a 5-year payback. So in fact, the money that the county invests will serve us well fiscally in the long run because we'll actually be getting a positive return on our investment.
The county building stock is growing, so not only do we need to reduce energy use from what we're using now, but reduce it by enough so that we're still reducing our total energy use, even as we're adding additional square footage.
We're at the Walter Reed Community Center. It is a green building. It incorporates many different features that reduce the environmental impact of the building. The materials that the building uses all have less environmental impact than a standard community center would. Well, the floors in here are made of concrete, saving ourselves that extra material, the tiles or the carpet. And it's finished off with some non-toxic paint and a water-based polyurethane coating that makes it shiny and protects the surface. The walls are made out of wheat straw. Wheat straw is usually just a waste material that farmers, they harvest the wheat and then burn the straw. And throughout the building, we use lots of natural daylight. Windows floor to ceiling allow natural sunlight in, which allows us to save energy because we don't have to light the building. There's a carbon dioxide sensor, which measures carbon dioxide in the room. When the room is full and there are a lot of people in here breathing, carbon dioxide levels go up. which the sensor will notice, and then it will increase the ventilation rates, which keeps air fresh, keeps this a very healthy environment. If the room is empty, it will note that carbon dioxide levels are low, and it will ratchet down the ventilation system, which is a very good energy-saving technique. Bamboo grows every 7 to 10 years, and then you can harvest it, and then the next 7 to 10 years you get another harvest. We also use cork on the floor. Cork is a rapidly renewable resource. It's made from the bark of a cork tree, and that bark grows back every few years and is harvested, but it doesn't kill the tree. The lights in the restrooms and the shower rooms are motion censored. So the lights go on when you walk in the room. They'll stay on for about 20 minutes, and then they go off when there's no one in the restroom to save a lot of energy. The sinks are low flow and have an inexpensive aerator in the faucet that reduces water usage. Once again, in the restrooms, we have the bare concrete floors, which make for very easy cleanup and maintenance. And in the shower stalls, we have low flow shower heads, 2.5 gallons per minute. They dismantled the old community center and built stone walls using existing stone from the site. When they designed the project, they tried very hard to save the existing natural features on the site. So we have a lot of very large shade trees. The green roof is planted with vegetation. These plants are called sedum. They're very hardy plants. When it's dry, they kind of shrivel up, and when it rains, they blossom and absorb a lot of water. And the whole roof at the Walter Reed Community Center is covered in sedum. It absorbs stormwater, so you have less stormwater runoff from the site. It keeps the building cooler in the summer and warmer in the winter. It reduces the ambient temperature on the building so that the site itself isn't quite so hot.
What we have here is an infrared camera. What we're seeing on here is this camera sees heat instead of light.
Okay.
So as we look around the room, we can see objects by their temperatures. We can see that the bed's cooler than the window because it's hot outside.
Right.
We can also see any problems where there's maybe problems with your insulation or a lot of leakage around a window.
Okay.
So I think this is where the problems are going to be.
All right.
Yeah, you've got some leaks right up where the frame meets the drywall here, and by the frame I mean the aluminum frame of the windows themselves. So I would suggest caulking all along that frame at the very top to seal that up.
So you can see right here where it's been damaged a little bit, we get a lot of leakage right there when the condensation builds up and it tends to...
Yeah, and you can actually see on here where that condensation has caused that air seal to break. We've actually got some air leaking in right there around the windowsill as well.
Okay.
The most common energy efficiency issues are usually related to the interface between the attic and the house itself.
The actual wall cavity is just open, doesn't have anything covering it at the top.
Oftentimes there are openings between the attic and the house that provide escape routes for the warm air to rise up through the house and be lost to the attic.
That's the cavity that runs up towards the attic.
So we provide them with the report that they can then use to take action upon.
Sealing the top is important because once you stop that airflow, you stop some of that air from coming in at the bottom. You can't get to all
the air leakage on a typical house is usually somewhere around 35% of the bill. It can fluctuate depending on how tight the house is, how much the insulation is, how well they control the thermostat.
Up in here. Got a great big gap up here. It's almost too wide to caulk. You'd probably need to stick something up there and then caulk around it. And when I say something solid, like we recommend like a strip of foam board insulation or something. You're getting a whole lot of air coming in there. That's probably the two windows. If the other one's this bad, that's probably 80% of your air leakage in this unit.
Even more than the picture window?
More than the sliding door, yeah.
Typically windows are not the first problem. They're usually way down the list. They're very rarely a cost-effective improvement. Okay.
If they put in new windows and they left that gap there, your savings would be almost nil because you're still losing energy through this gap. I wonder where that goes. It goes way up there. I wonder if it actually goes right up to the next unit.
And if it's that, it might be a condo expense more than a unit owners.
I would suggest take this as one sample, but probably do a sample of 3 or 4 units out of the 40 get a couple of samples, and then you can come up with some kind of plan.
The single biggest sector of emissions is the business community.
You don't see that many people out there working to make buildings more efficient, especially the older high-rise office buildings and that sort of thing. But, you know, it's got to start somewhere, right? Are we ready? Those grills, they're very leaky. I'm sure they're directly connected to the attic somehow.
I mean, we have this AC unit, but it's so loud we can't run it most of the time and get any work done.
Well, part of the reason it's hot during the summer is you've got very low ceilings, but you've got that grill in the closet there that's directly connected to your attic. So that heat from the attic is spilling into here. Heat will migrate towards cooler air when it can. How many times have you driven on 495 in the evening and seen one of those office buildings, you know everybody's left and just the cleaners are there, but every single light is on in that building. Every single light all the way up and down.
We're offering 5 free energy audits for small businesses.
We probably have a fair amount of energy from the animals too.
Okay, but are the lights in those terrariums and stuff being used to warm those terrariums?
Some of them, yeah.
Okay, because obviously if it's just for lighting, you could switch to CFLs. But incandescent lights, as you know, put out a lot of heat. That's where the waste is. But a lot of terrariums use incandescents simply because of the heat they put out, the nice warm heat they put out.
Exactly.
So in that case, it's not really being wasted if it's being used to warm a terrarium. It doesn't seem like right now businesses have a whole lot of incentive to try to save on energy. Hopefully that'll change.
So Paul's announced at the State of the County address that he's going to offer 5 free small business energy audits. We are developing programs to much more actively engage with the business community, asking businesses to analyze their own energy use and perhaps identify opportunities for substantial savings.
The technology really exists out there, and it's just a matter of government pushing it. The new leaders of Congress had read about the Arlington Environmental Initiative, and they thought that this would be a good thing to talk about as an example of the direction the country should be going.
In the weeks ahead, we'll take steps to promote clean and renewable energy.
The dependence on foreign energy sources is a real issue, and more conservatives are saying that's a reason to invest in renewable energies.
You had mentioned federal inaction, and that's why localities 400...
So I was able to talk about what Arlington's doing, and they were able to talk about the direction they thought the federal government should go.
Alternative and renewable fuels like the sun, wind, and the steam that comes out of the ground naturally in Nevada. When it comes to our dependence on oil, we can't kick it down the road any longer.
It's important that the federal government acts, and the federal government needs to act soon.
Much of the air pollution that affects our air quality in the summertime actually drifts into our region from the west, where there are many coal-fired power plants.
The main problem is coal, is the use of dirty power. Most of the emissions come from buildings because we use power to power our buildings, and most of that power comes from coal.
And it's those coal-fired power plants that are causing the air pollution that drifts over us.
Arlington County, as a government, will take the following steps. Expand our commitment to renewable energy sources by increasing the purchase of wind-generated power.
By buying the wind power, we're reducing the amount of coal that must be burned to produce the electricity. And so now there's a brand new wind farm that didn't even exist when we started. And so that's a sign that making these voluntary wind power purchases stimulates the market and gives investors the confidence to build additional wind power plants. And so how we buy our electricity, where the electricity is made, does have an effect on our local air quality.
And because we have so many leaks, we're heating outdoors.
If you wanted to take it to the next level, you could strip the walls out, renovate the whole place, put in central AC. But really, is that a cost-effective thing to do? No, at this stage, it's probably not.
This whole assembly is real leaky, and that's real common with these old windows.
The one you have in the computer room and the one you have in the out room, those are very efficient units. So you might want to eventually replace these other units with units like those.
One easy way to fix, especially this part, is you can buy what's called rope caulk.
Press it into place with your fingertips.
Perfect.
This bulb is going to save us $46 in energy costs per lamp.
And Arlingtonians, they have a world overview. And they care about this country, they care about this world, and they want to be part of the solution.
Okay. Arlington will not solve the climate problem on its own, but we can play our part. If you think globally and act locally, we can all do this together, but everybody has to take responsibility for the little part of it that they have control over.
I think the cultural shift can happen and may be desirable, but that's really not the agenda for the county. The county's really about let's just be more energy efficient. Let's be greener. Let's make our footprint on the environment smaller.
Our commitments to future generations can be no less than that which preceded us.
That's what it's all about in government, is you want to make sure things are as good for the next generation as they are for you.